What should you learn next? It sounds like such a simple question, right? But if you're a professional navigating today's world, just hearing that sentence probably gives you a tiny, quiet sense of dread. I mean, with every new platform shift, every crazy algorithm update, and all these wild breakthroughs in AI, you know you have to keep adapting. But honestly, where do you even start?
Think about JVH. He's the 34-year-old content marketer living in Melbourne. Picture this. It's 11 p.m., his 3-year-old daughter is finally asleep, and he's just sitting at his kitchen table, totally exhausted, scrolling through endless course catalogs. He's got Coursera in one tab, Udemy in another. He's staring at literally thousands of options: prompt engineering, data analytics, video production, the whole shebang. But here's the catch. None of these platforms actually know who he is. They don't know what skill gaps he has or where his career is heading. He is basically paralyzed by abundance.
So let's get right into this explainer. What JVH is going through, it isn't just a personal time management issue, and it's definitely not a lack of motivation. It's actually a symptom of a massive historical transition. Today we're going to explore the long story of human learning, how our current systems have fundamentally broken down, and the really exciting, revolutionary new era of learning we're stepping into right now.
Section 1. The Learner Alone. For the first time in 200,000 years.
To really grasp the weight of JVH's late-night anxiety, we have to understand something wild. The learner alone is an entirely new phenomenon for our species. Just look at the historical contrast. Over on the left, for thousands of years, the historical learner was always embedded in a deeply supportive system. You were guided by your community, and your progress was tracked by a mentor, a master, or an institution. But on the right side, the modern adult learner is completely isolated. The second you get that university degree, boom, the system releases you into the wild. You're left with this fragmented landscape of disconnected courses, carrying the incredibly heavy burden of continuous lifelong upskilling entirely on your own.
Section 2. The long story of learning. Society shapes learning, and learning shapes society.
Okay, so how did we get here? Well, we have to look at a recurring historical loop. Basically, every major shift in human society produces a brand new learning model, and then that new learning model produces a new kind of society. It's like a giant historical engine. Looking at this timeline, the sheer scale of adaptation is just mind-blowing. 200,000 years ago, we started with tribal watching, just silently passing down tacit knowledge. When that wasn't enough to pass down deep history, we invented oral tradition. When cities got too big for human memory, we invented the written word. And when the Industrial Revolution needed mass obedience and basic literacy, we literally built the factory school. The system always adapts to the immense pressures of its age.
Section 3. The Digital Illusion. Access is not formation.
Zooming into our recent past, the digital revolution brought us things like massive open online courses, MOOCs. They promised to totally fix education by giving anyone, anywhere, free access to world-class lectures. But they kind of missed the mark completely. Just look at the stark data point, 3 to 15%. That is the dismal completion rate for these massive courses. Tens of thousands of people would hit enroll, but almost nobody would actually finish. It turns out putting the world's knowledge at your fingertips didn't democratize learning at all. It really only democratized access.
The absolutely crucial difference to wrap your head around here is content versus formation. See, the internet did a fantastic job of scaling content at near zero cost. But in the process, it completely stripped away the vital human formation that institutions used to provide. It wiped out the structure, the community, the pacing, and the guidance. Because as it turns out, watching a beautifully produced video of a Stanford professor, yeah, that's just not the same thing as the effortful, guided process of actually building a new competence.
Section 4. The Depreciating Degree. The Broken Social Contract.
So while digital platforms were struggling to create real formation, the traditional bedrock of the 20th century learning system was quietly falling apart. The old social contract, the promise that one credential earned in your youth could carry you through an entire career, just collapsed. Let's compare. Back in 1965, an engineer gets one degree, walks into General Motors, and stays for a stable 33-year career. The engineering principles they learned remain largely stable their whole life. Fast forward to today. As a modern worker, you're expected to hold 12 or more jobs. The half-life of your professional knowledge is shrinking so fast, it's sometimes obsolete in just months. This forces modern workers into this relentless state of credential inflation, where degrees cost way more, but guarantee a lot less.
And that leaves us with an immense psychological and structural toll on today's lifelong learner.
Think about it. You've got to constantly navigate changing industry demands. You usually have to pay for your own retraining out of pocket. You don't even have a continuous transcript that tracks what you actually know across different platforms. And to top it all off, you're trying to do this late at night, balancing an already exhausting full life, exactly like JVH at his kitchen table.
Section 5. The next iteration. The convergence of capacities.
But here is where the story takes a massive pivot. Remember that historical loop we talked about earlier? Well, it's repeating itself right now. The intense pressure of our broken, fragmented system has finally met the technological capacity to build a real solution. For the very first time in human history, 4 specific capacities are converging. First, we finally have AI that can actually understand natural language and respond in real time. Second, we have the data infrastructure to track a learner's development over decades. Third, digital reach allows us to deliver this to billions. And fourth, there is massive economic demand from people and companies desperate for an upskilling solution that actually works. We are literally entering the next iteration of learning.
And this incredible convergence has given birth to something called PLI, Personal Learning Intelligence. Now, it's super important to note that PLI isn't just one single software product. It's a completely new category of learning systems. It's a system that fundamentally learns the learner. It builds a persistent model of what you know, it dynamically adapts to your specific context and goals, and most importantly, it stays with you, guiding you across the decades of your career.
What's so fascinating here is that PLI isn't erasing history. It's actually accumulating the greatest strengths of every past era. It inherits the deep, intimate knowledge of the tribal grandmother. It takes the adaptive, one-on-one guidance of ancient teachers like Socrates or Confucius. It borrows the organized sequence and structure of the factory school. And then it combines the whole thing with the infinite, low-cost reach of the digital age. It is the ultimate synthesis.
So, how does this actually solve JVH's late-night dilemma? Well, with PLI, instead of staring at a blank search bar, Step 1 tracks his continuous competence across all his past platforms and job experiences. Step 2 dynamically adapts his pacing. It recognizes, hey, he already knows content marketing, but he really needs specific AI strategy frameworks. Then Step 3 provides him with hyper-personalized, continuous guidance. It essentially acts like a lifelong mentor that perfectly curates his exact next step.
Section 6. Conclusion. The story continues. The civilizational stakes here are absolutely massive. As the saying goes, the way a society teaches its young is the way it builds its future. How we choose to govern this data, who actually gets access to it, and whether it empowers the learner or just measures them for corporate efficiency, that's going to determine the entire next era of human progress. We are literally building the future right now, and it changes the game for everyone from JV down to his 3-year-old daughter.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. For your entire life, you have had to adapt yourself to the constraints of the learning system. But as we step into this wild new era, how will a learning system that truly deeply knows you change who you become? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.